Hey, Seattle hockey fans, Erica Ayala coming to you live from an airport because why not? Happy Monday. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. And of course, you know by now that BetOnline is your most reliable source for your props, your odds, and they have more lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. And where we're going to start today's show, Monday's show, is actually with a Squadcast. That's right. We have a crossover episode with Jess Belmosto of Locked On Calgary Flames. We hope you enjoy.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
But I figured today we could kind of chat about some changes and what the future of the Kraken looks like. Mainly because this entire roster looked so different, even at the trade deadline. But now we're in the first true off season for the Kraken. How are things looking? How do you feel about it?
So I think I'm feeling a little bit better, but considering that I have said on Locked On Kraken a bunch of times, we kind of needed everything. I think there was still a lot that we could have gone for. I think ultimately with the cap space and even the prospects, more so the draft picks that we had, I think we went more of a conservative route. And I do think a lot of that has to do with getting Shane Wright at number 4.
Yeah. What was your reaction to that? That, huge get with him.
Huge get. And if I'm being honest, I hadn't done a lot of scouting before the draft on Shane Wright because everything that we were hearing was that he was going number 1. And so there's not that many scenarios that I had drawn up in my mind where he would fall to 4. And I just didn't think that we were going to be able to jockey for position higher than 4. So of course I knew about Shane Wright, heard a lot of great things about him, but never really did a deep dive into what he could be for the Seattle Kraken squad. And of course that changed very quickly on draft day. I was in Chicago getting ready for the WNBA All-Star Weekend. And I was like, okay, I better hop on a cellular device or something and patch into Kraken Nation because my goodness, what a pick. So that was a wild draft. We've talked a lot on Locked On Kraken also about Welcome to the NHL, which is the documentary series that they have that accounts for that draft with some of the top prospects. And that was really exciting to see as a team that had a top 4, covering a team that had a top 4 pick. And Shane Wright was one of those players that they followed leading up to the draft. And you heard him say things that he said publicly since, but can't wait to, I'm going to circle that game. But the one that really I found interesting was when Arizona picked at 3. One of the first things you see in the cut is that he says, that one hurt. That one hurts. And I was like, oh man, he was definitely going through it. And of course, we also at Locked On Kraken have talked about, is this a bad thing that we get who was supposed to go at 1 at 4? What does that mean? Does he have an attitude problem? Was he glaring at the Montreal, table and stuff like that? And I'm like, he would have, I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a little bit sensationalized. I think he definitely was looking at someone. Of course, he's never going to admit that. Was it Montreal? Was it Arizona? I mean, everyone keeps asking if he was looking at Montreal, but maybe he was looking at Arizona. I don't know. But ultimately, what my take on that is, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we have so many really absolutely terrible things that are happening in the hockey community and that are being perpetuated on hockey fans, hockey players in real time, that I honestly am not taking a lot of stock or putting a lot of stock in a teenager having an attitude.
Oh, right. I was just going to say, what 18-year-old boy doesn't have an attitude problem? Like,
Yeah.
I have
Like
a younger
what
brother.
45-year-old dude doesn't have an attitude problem?
Especially like, there, like you said, there are so many bigger issues in this sport. I don't think we need to focus on this kid who thought he was going to go number one overall.
Exactly.
I would be disappointed. Are you kidding me?
Of
Like,
course.
I'm
Gutted.
disappointed when my coffee's made wrong, let alone like my legacy changing. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But that's just, again, one of the many things that one of the useless things people put stock into in this sport. But Maddie Beniers and Shane Wright down the middle. What does that look like? And what does that mean for the future of the Kraken organization?
Well, we talked about this a lot last season in preparation for the inaugural season, but Ron Francis and basically anyone else in hockey is going to tell you want to build through the middle: goaltending, defense, centerman. And to get two young, promising centermen, top 5 picks for sure. Obviously, both fell within the top 4. That has a lot of promise. What we also know is that an NHL draft class can kind of be all over the place, including in those top 5, top 10 really picks. It can be tight for what's really going to work out for a long hockey career. I think we look at some of the players that have had long careers and we get a little spoiled, but that's the exception and not the rule comparative to who is drafted. So I think it is exciting for sure. There's a lot of promise. And if we trust that the Seattle Kraken have built their staff, which I do believe they have, to be people who can facilitate growth, then I think, yeah, that's really exciting. But it's as of yet unrealized. So that's where how long is this process going to take is a little bit of where the discomfort is, I think, with Kraken fans.
Right. And I think it's fair, obviously, to say that. It's very realistic. And, I would be frustrated too, considering how many years these other teams have had to build their organization. And it's, kind of like a head start. But good things come to those who wait. And coming up next, we are absolutely going to continue the conversation. And before we do that, though, let's talk about our friends at BetOnline. As always, please remember to gamble responsibly, and there are resources out there for you if you are struggling. BetOnline has all your sports betting needs, podcast news, the latest lines, A to Z, reality TV, bets, everything, golf, you name it. NHL, MLB, and of course, you can find all the details on betonline.net. And remember to gamble responsibly. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Locked On Flames. And, this has been quite the off season for the NHL, but I feel like Seattle has had some changes since the trade deadline. What's been going on there?
Yeah, well, we got rid of a lot of assets, or really more so a lot of money at the trade deadline, including our mutual in Mark Giordano, our first captain. And that was a move that it sounds like throughout the season, Gio and the Kraken front office had been having that conversation, just kind of seeing how the season was going, figuring out what Gio would wanted to do and stuff like that. So it wasn't a surprise. It's not great when you lose a captain, as we all know.
Yeah.
But needed to be done. And again, did open up some of those assets for the trade. We did move around some of those assets to move up just a few spots. I believe it was in the second round. But then also they came in huge when we got Oliver Bjorkstrand in particular, because the Seattle Kraken, being in a good position with our cap space, when looking for teams that needed to let go of cap space, we really could be in a good position to essentially ask for what we wanted. That being said, and it alludes to something I said earlier, I think we could have still been a little bit more aggressive, especially in certain areas like goaltending and defense. But I mean, same question to you, Jess. I mean, the Flames were all over NHL Twitter and social media for what was or wasn't going to happen in the offseason. And of course, some pretty big assets yourself have moved on.
Yeah, free agency opened and I expected at like 12:01. Okay, Gaudreau to Philly is official, whatever. No, it was like 4 o'clock, and he's announced to Columbus, which I liked. I thought that was good. Small market, perfect fit for him. And with that, you're losing 40-goal scorer. You're losing just one of the best playmakers in the league. And then Matthew Tkachuk, a few days later, waltzes in and says, Calgary's not in my long-term picture. Okay. All right. Well, at least you told them now. And that trade gets announced at 11 o'clock at night. And Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar are suddenly Calgary Flames. Quite the return on that as well, because you get 2 roster players, a first-round pick, and a prospect. Now, I don't know what Brad Treliving's doing. I don't. I have no idea, had no idea, but it was just a crazy week for all of this to be happening.
Yeah, I mean, free agency, I think all over the place has been wild, which all the more reason why I was like, can we get in on some of that action? Like, I mean, thinking about the Klingberg sweepstakes, Kadri was available. I don't think that goaltending, which again is something that we definitely need, was necessarily going to be something that in this free agency that we could really capitalize on. I think we did okay there. But what I do like, with exception of a handful of contracts, is that the Seattle Kraken basically, I would say, got veteran players on bridge contracts. I in my mind, Ronnie Francis came in. He's always got his chain showing, and he came in and he was like, listen, this is how we're going to do this. You want a team, I've got money to pay you, but we're not keeping it long term. This is short term, hit it, quit it. We got to go, and
Yep.
if it works out, we'll talk about it. If not, it was nice knowing you. And I think that's fair because to me, that signals the Seattle Kraken not wanting to be kind of handcuffed into certain contracts that are not good contracts. Ron Francis has talked a lot to us in media about, listen, we've got these young guys that we really want to give a shot. They will have every shot to make the roster. And then we have to think in the next 5 or so years of what we want to offer them. If they can do what we say they can do and what everyone projects that they can do, we want money to be able to pay them. So I do think, though, that leaves us in an interesting position for the next 2 to 3 seasons, because what does that team look like? Didn't look great, as you mentioned, coming out of the expansion draft. It was projected it would be a lot better than it actually was. So I don't really know. And again, goaltending, we brought in Martin Jones, didn't have a great season. I think a lot of people are hoping he can get back to his San Jose Shark numbers. Goaltending is hit or miss, as we saw with the Seattle Kraken. We won't have Drieger. He had an ACL tear with his national team, Hockey Canada. Philip Grubauer didn't have a great season, didn't ever really look comfortable to me in front of the Seattle Kraken. We did change up goaltending coaches, so maybe that will help. And then we brought back our former goaltending coach, and he's in another position. So I don't know what's going on there necessarily. It feels a little like it probably deserves a little more attention than it's getting, but I think that's just because everyone's kind of mums the word and everyone pretty much agrees that the Kraken goaltending wasn't great. But again, it just feels like a discomfort. Maybe the ideologies and process and system didn't align. Either way, Ron Francis and company moving forward, moving on, and I think it will be a short leash between bridge contracts, but then also with staff, because I do think Ron Francis wants this to be a winning franchise sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And, I kind of just thought of this while you were talking. Seattle not mimicking Vegas's immediate success doesn't mean they're not going to be a successful team. I think a lot of people kind of it's very easy to compare the two because they're the two latest expansion teams. And quite honestly, I would rather be in Seattle's position out of the gate than have this immediate success and then be in a cap space nightmare, not even 5 years down the road.
And that's what we've seen with Vegas. And Ron Francis made it very clear from jump, we are not Las Vegas. They didn't have the luxury of being Las Vegas with the short turnaround between expansion teams. And cap space is definitely one of the reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you did mention, speaking of caps, Mark Giordano left. So your captain's gone. Do you think that the future captain is currently on the Seattle Kraken's roster or in their farm system somewhere?
Yeah, I think it's quite possible. A lot of people are calling for Yanni Gourde. We still, of course, have Schwartz and Eberle, Gourde, that all had, served as alternate captains. So I think the potential is there. I think Gourde is a great choice. He's definitely the fan choice. But I wonder if it goes to maybe – I wonder if maybe it does go to Schwartzy or Ebbs. I personally would pick Eberle. I think he can really fire people up. I think maybe it goes to Ebbs. I think he can fire people up just like, that lawnmower is being fired up behind me. But, I think he can fire people up. I think he has the respect. I think he has the experience. And obviously he can deliver on the ice. So for my money, if I were a betting woman, and I don't know if BetOnline has these, future captain bets, but that would be my take for the Seattle Kraken next captain.
I could absolutely see that. Jordan Eberle was one of my favorite Islanders. That was a very short list, but he definitely commands respect, I think, throughout the league and in any locker room.
I want to put you in the hot seat for a minute here. So we talked a little bit about, just kind of what free agency looked like, but when it comes to leadership for Calgary, I mean, what do you think some of these changes are going to look like when it comes to the chemistry and what the Flames are going to be able to do in 2022-23?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a guy like Tyler Toffoli, Chris Tanev, and Jonathan Huberdeau are really, three names that will obviously get the team, rally them together. I think that Michael Backlund, who I believe is the longest tenured Flames player, he's played his whole career there, really just is one of those guys that people turn to. He usually wears an A, but I don't think that they're going to name a captain this year. I think that they're still going to wait it out, but I definitely think those are some key names and kind of, bringing the team back together and kind of saying, okay, yes, we lost two guys, two big names. You lost more than that, but you have to move forward. We have the future's still bright. The window's there. It's open. It didn't slam shut like a lot of people thought it was going to if Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau left. So there's still plenty of reason to be hopeful. Go out there and prove everyone wrong. You're still the underdogs, no matter how you look at it. All right, Erica, what do you grade the off season so far?
Ooh, I'm going with a B minus, and I also saw that the Athletic, they've been doing this is like grades and charts season, you know.
Yep.
But I saw that they did a grade report, particularly for the contracts they gave the Seattle Kraken a B minus. I was saying, especially before the Ryan Donato re-signing, B minus, and that's just because I think we made improvements. We should be a better team. Did we buy ourselves 15 more wins? No. It's like averaging out for most experts to maybe about 5. I mean, that's better, but it's not great. So B minus in my estimation. I still have a lot of questions in goaltending. I'm just hoping one of the goaltenders gets really hot. And now everyone was like, oh my gosh, the Kraken are going to be awesome. And then they jinxed us. I'm kidding a little in case you're just listening on audio, but they jinxed us, air quotes. And now maybe they'll do a reverse jinx and everyone's like, oh, the Seattle Kraken are going to be terrible. And then it's like, well, let's see what we got. So I say a B minus, but how about the Flames? How are you feeling about what they were able to do?
I would probably say B minus, C plus, depending on, I really want to say a B minus because of the Huberdeau extension. Had that not been done before camp started, I would be very worried because Huberdeau is a UFA the end of next year, was. And the last thing the Flames needed, the Flames organization, the Flames fan base, anything, they did not need another huge name walking away. A lot of people are disappointed in the two players were leaving and saying like, oh, well, Calgary's a great city, like they're taking it personally.
Yeah.
I get it, but also I don't want to shovel my driveway either. So I would be on the first plane out to Florida, but yeah, I think the next big step is kind of working some prospects into things. I know that Daryl Sutter doesn't like playing the young guys, but it's time for some of them to make a jump.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. So we talked about grades. Any breakouts? Do you think someone's just going to have a really fantastic season for the Flames and can maybe steal a few wins that aren't projected for this team?
I'm going to say Dylan Dubé and Andrew Mangiapane. I just root so hard for Dubé. He's a Calgary kid. He has so much more potential in him. And I think that the Flames need to figure out a true role for him. He's not necessarily one of the players that you can just like plug and play anywhere. He needs the consistency, the structure. Very much like me, I can't just, go in and wing it. But I think it's important for him to be set up for success. Otherwise, he is an RFA at the end of the season, so we're going to have to start looking at things as well. Andrew Mangiapane might as well just change his middle name to Clutch. He is just an absolute force to be reckoned with on power play, penalty kill, even strength, you name it. He scored 35 goals last year, earned himself a nice pay raise. I think it's going to be him.
I love that. As far as the Seattle Kraken, again, I'm like, I think it's minimal improvement from, again, on paper, what we were at the end of last season. But the more I learn about Oliver Bjorkstrand, the more excited I am. I think Burakovsky obviously was a pretty big signing for us as well, Andre Burakovsky. But I think Bjorkstrand to me sounds more like the type of player that could really excel and thrive for a Seattle Kraken squad. He spoke to media and he said, listen, I've been with a team that had a lot of young guys and didn't do great. I know what that feels like. I know what's needed. And I asked specifically, when you were that young guy, what did some of the veterans do for you that you hope to do for our young centers in particular? And so I really enjoyed hearing his response to that. And again, that veteran leadership, coupled with some of the players, like I mentioned, Schwartz, Ebbs, Yanni Gourde, that have been there before, Burakovsky. Also, I'm really curious to see what Justin Schultz on the defensive side of things is going to do. I think we need more excitement. We need better skating, and a little bit more of a dynamic type of defenseman. And so I'm not sure exactly how Schultz's game is going to translate comparative to Bjorkstrand's, but I hear good things. Obviously, when you win 2 cups, you know what that culture is like, you know what it takes. So I'm hoping some of that also rubs off on our blue liners this season.
Absolutely. Last season, the Flames brought in Blake Coleman, who was just coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup wins. And something like that is, I kept calling it the shiny new toy. It's just, wow, like this guy knows what it takes. What can I copy and emulate my game? What can I take from him? And I think the biggest thing for the Flames was that two-way defensive forward. And that is something that even Gaudreau, who, 27 years old, set in his ways, can't teach an old dog new tricks. Calling him an old dog at 27 feels so wrong, but that's hockey. Will more players be able to bring that into their game? And is there anything you want to see kind of besides the skating? Is there something that you really want to see the Kraken bring in this season?
Yeah, I think, again, more movement defensively. I think we had some pretty tall defensive players, which I was really excited about. Generally speaking, I like size defensively, but that didn't always lead to skating ability and skill and moving the puck. I think it's a lot of kind of football Hail Mary passes to then connect, which I think did make us a weaker team on our entries and exits, not being able to carry the puck through the zones, having poise and composure with possession from all 3 zones, I think was a problem for the Seattle Kraken. And again, really spoke to our exits and entries. I'm also excited when you look at, I mentioned Schultz before, but also, some of the other guys that we've brought in, and anything that we can do to improve special teams, I am all for it. And net front presence was a little bit of a problem with Yanni Gourde was kind of put into that position a lot. I do like Ryan Donato signing. I don't like that he signed for less than Morgan Geekie. I did not understand that
I don't understand that at all. That, to me, is just very... I don't know. I didn't think Ted Donato would let something like that happen, but...
I didn't like it. And then, there were reports that Donato had higher offers elsewhere and he wanted to stay with Seattle. I love that Donato is loyal to us. I've been like hardcore. Those who listen to Locked On Kraken, I have my phrase. We'd get all this hate from Bruins fans, Wild fans, Sharks fans, like, oh yeah, he seems great, and then he putters out. I was like, no. Donato loves us more than he ever loved you. He's going to put on for the Seattle Kraken, and he did. And for them to lowball him, for him to want to stick with us enough that he didn't take, at least what was reported as higher offers. I love that he has that loyalty to us. I don't think the Seattle Kraken shared that loyalty, or at least they didn't show it. And so I would love for Ryan Donato to just absolutely crush, having a fantastic season. It's a 1-year deal, so that means we have to go through this with him again. But I would love for him to just have a fantastic season and really make the Seattle Kraken front office question not only the deal that they gave him, but if they're willing to lose him after this coming season.
As someone who went to Ryan Donato's first NHL game and was right behind the net when he scored his first goal, I love this for him. I think that I'm glad that he's found his landing spot and somewhere where he can fit in. Boston has problems developing young players. This isn't a secret. And I'm just so happy for him. And, I was shocked that Seattle didn't have that pen to paper immediately.
I just don't understand how we in this economy, in this, Seattle Kraken inaugural season economy, I don't really know why Donato is a demerit for us, but you won't get, I could spend, 5 podcasts talking about this and never truly understand it. Like, make it make sense. Oh wait, you never will. Like, my mind is made up.
No, absolutely. And it's very frustrating. And that's just, again, one of the things about hockey that I will never understand.
But, I guess, like I said, we'll see. Best case scenario, both perform really, really well. But, of course, whenever we do these squad casts or crossovers, the big question everyone has is, so what does this all mean? What are the bold predictions? What are we expecting? And we both happen to be in the same division. So your team made the playoffs, mine didn't. So let's do this. What do you think, or where do you think Calgary will finish in the Pacific Division? And do you think there'll be a playoff squad come the end of the upcoming season?
I'm going to say they finished 3rd in the division.
Okay.
Behind Edmonton and whoever else is in 1st. But I will say that they make the playoffs. I think they have a slow start to the season, trying to figure out the chemistry, get all, the Pistons firing, getting everything, just everyone on the same page, in the same book, the same paragraph, the same line, the same word, which we've seen them struggle with in the past. But I do think that they make the playoffs. I don't know if it's a successful playoff run, but we'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Yeah, this is interesting because I think everyone in the Pacific Division is chasing, as you mentioned, Edmonton, Calgary. I think the Kings are an interesting team. I can't say that I'm fully versed in what their off-season moves have been, but the trajectory, I think, is moving in a positive direction. So I still think that, we're chasing those 3 teams, yourself included. So that makes it really tough. I think we could probably jockey for maybe that 5 or 6 spot, which would not put us in the playoffs. And I do think that that's accurate and fair for what the improvements have been made. Did we gain some wins? Yes. Did we gain enough to be more competitive in the Pacific Division? I think also yes. Does that mean we're going to be a playoff team in our second season? Right now, my answer is no.
And that's kind of the fun part, is that we get to make these predictions in the first week of August and then circle back to them in a few months and then just pretend they never existed. But thank you so much for joining me today, Erica. Thank you so much for joining me, and go listen to Locked On Kraken for some more soundscapes of America.
Thank you, as always, Seattle hockey fans, for making Locked On Kraken your first listen of the day. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jess Belmosto, or as I like to say, our Squadcast episode. Got to learn a little bit more about my thoughts on the Kraken. Got to learn a little bit about the Calgary Flames. We have more Squadcasts coming up and special stuff. So let me get back to where I've got to go. Lots of travel, you know me, always on the road. But I also want to just congratulate Sue Bird. She played her last regular season game as a member of the Seattle Storm. But don't fret, although the Seattle Storm christened basketball, at least, in Climate Pledge Arena, Sue Bird and the Storm have clinched a playoff berth. So we'll see how the WNBA season continues. And we'll get to see Sue Bird fly once more in Climate Pledge Arena. Until our next episode, hold fast, stay true, and let's go Kraken.